Thank you for inviting me here. Really happy to speak here. I will first tell you a bit about what PaperHive is and how it works, and then show you a couple of use cases for books. I will explain you briefly how it works from the user perspective, how the user journey usually is on PaperHive, and mostly it starts on the publisher websites. So this is a publisher website, actually a book landing page of a German book publisher called Transcript, and so that's usually how the researcher is coming to the book. You're Googling it, you're coming to the publisher landing page, and then close to these options where you usually download the PDF or can buy it, or the book in other formats, you will see this PaperHive widget that tells you can read and discuss this book on PaperHive. And it will also show you that there are discussions going on and how many people are following this book. So if you click this widget, you're directed to the PaperHive website, and you're directly jumping right into the book. You can directly start reading. And what you will see on the right side here are discussions that are happening right within the text. So there are like contextual discussions, you could say annotations. For example, someone asked a question here in this mathematics book, and there was an answer to that with a nice graph. And so if you're reading this book, you might directly benefit from these discussions that are happening. On the other hand, if you yourself have a question or you want to enrich the content, you can also do so. You can just highlight a piece of text, add your question or enrichment, and everyone else can see that then. That's actually not entirely true. You can also discuss in private. So you have public or private mode on PaperHive. I will show you in a second how this private mode looks like. But so annotations are the kind of the key feature of PaperHive, and PaperHive is doing a bit more. It's more like an integrated platform where you work as a researcher or a student, and there are a couple of things that are important for making this a success, and one thing is that it's happening on the version of record, all these discussions, so on the official version, public or private discussions. All the discussions are citable, actually. So actually you get a link for each discussion. If you click it, you're sent directly to this discussion. You can send it, for example, to a colleague saying, hey, what do you think about that? And this colleague can then answer or join the discussion. All discussions are licensed under the Creative Commons license, so you can basically reuse those discussions both as a researcher, student, or a publisher. We're supporting LaTeX and Markdown in these comments, so you can use formulas and more advanced formatting. And very important, we're basing all of this on a W3C standard, the web annotation standard, so these annotations are actually can be used in other environments as well. So that's not a lock-in thing or anything. One use case of PaperHive is team collaboration. I mentioned that earlier. The way this works on PaperHive is through so-called channels. Channel is basically a group of people, and anyone can create a channel, then invite a couple of people, and then you can associate documents with that. And for example, you have a research group, and you start discussing in this research group books or articles that are relevant for this. So by the way, PaperHive is working for both journal articles and books. We started actually with journal articles and preprints, and later figured out that it's actually amazing for books too. So that's now actually a book here. This is one use case of PaperHive where the publisher is doing the entire peer review process and proofreading on PaperHive publicly. So this is a publisher called Language Science Press. So the book is in Chinese, and sorry, I don't have any idea what's written there, but I hope it's not offensive or say anything. So, but it says translation error, so I guess it's fine. So what they're doing is they're putting the manuscript on PaperHive immediately after it has been submitted to them, and they had a pre-check. And then they invite a group of people to do the peer review on PaperHive. And so it's a very quick way to do a peer review. Like we call it also a crowdsourced peer review. And they're a bit radical in the sense that they do all this in public. So I think a lot of publishers are a bit afraid to do this kind of thing totally in public. But they're happy with it, and it works well for them. And later on, the books are all published as open access books. So the peer review, that's again one of the books from Language Science Press. The peer review is actually not only happening pre-publication, it can also happen post-publication. It's kind of a continuous form of peer review that you are having on PaperHive, which is also quite interesting for other things like preprints, for example, where you usually don't have any quality assurance, or just a tiny bit. And for the reviewers and the authors, it's really handy to have this kind of discussions right in the text where they belong, so you don't have these emails where it says, on page 250, second paragraph, line, whatever, I meant this, can you change this? You have it directly where it belongs, and this is really convenient for authors and reviewers. Another use case of PaperHive is the reader and author exchange. So you can have discussions between your readers and the authors, or reader to reader or reader to author discussions. Sometimes they just happen themselves. You maybe have a question or something, you can even notify the author. By the way, PaperHive also sends notifications to people who are involved in the discussions, so you will know when something happened on a document you're interested in. There is a tiny button called Hive, and when you hit that, you will receive notifications for everything that's happening on this book or document. And also, from a publisher perspective, it's quite interesting that you can do kind of marketing activities with that. So things like Q&A sessions on a book. Imagine you're publishing a new book, and you're telling your readers, you're announcing that the author will be responding to questions on this day. This is a really interesting offer for readers, and really drives a lot of readers to your books. Another use case that I really love is you can use PaperHive for making textbooks interactive. So this is a textbook published by Springer, and it's used in a lecture or in lectures, and the lecturer is then inviting all the students in this lecture to PaperHive, and they can directly ask questions within the text. So imagine you're a student, you don't get something in this weird matrix here, and you can ask right away, I'm sorry, I don't understand this, could you please explain? And then it's really interesting to see what happens. And sometimes other students come in and answer the question, sometimes right away, or after a while maybe the lecturer comes in and clarifies it, or the author of the book. So this is a really interesting, a new kind of communication that we didn't see before, and we didn't really have this in mind for lectures, but I'm really happy that we're doing this together with Springer now, and it works really well. So it saves basically also the students a bit of time. The lecturer is really happy that all the students don't come to his or her office all the time, knocking on the door and asking questions that he or she already answered 10 times before. So yeah, so this was mostly from the perspective of researchers or students, both in the role of authors or readers. But it's also really interesting from the publisher perspective, because you're attracting and retaining authors. Like, authors who are really into the topics and are driving communication around their content. You're able to boost the usage by team collaboration. So imagine all the usage, all the communication that is happening on PaperHive is basically triggering new usage on your documents that wasn't visible at all before, or just didn't happen. I should mention here that PaperHive is not hosting these documents. So we're having a technology that pulls in the documents dynamically from the publisher websites. So that this means that if the user has access from the place he or she is currently working at, it just works. You're just seeing the document. It's just there. And if you don't have access, we can't do so much about it. We're redirecting to the publisher website in this case. And so what I mean is that this is completely copyright compliant, and you can actually share documents in the sense of sending links. And the beauty of this is that you get all the usage data to your platform that you already have, and you don't have to adapt anything. So that's my presentation. Thank you.